Hello, my name's Chrissy, and my testimony to you is about how I got involved with the occult. I will tell you a little bit about myself first and how I came to the Lord. I came up to Scotland from the Isle of Wight, where I was deeply involved with the occult and people who were involved themselves. We came up here because the pub that we were living in was losing a lot of money and a lot of bad things were happening. We were in very dark places and we knew we had to leave the island. So we came up here by purely putting a pin in the map that landed in Castle Douglas, and that's where we went. When we got to Castle Douglas, I had been bothered with not an illness, but a problem for a few years. But when we got to where we was living in Castle Douglas, I found that I needed to go to the doctors again. And unfortunately, I found out that I had cancer. I can remember going into one of the rooms, and the first time in a very long time, I actually said to the Lord, please God, please don't let me die. Not yet. I want to see my grandchildren grow up and be with Nigel. So I'm asking you, please don't let this happen. Anyway, we moved from Castle Douglas because we were out in the sticks and a long way from a shop, and we came to Sanker. As we moved into Sanker, we just kept thinking we should find a church. Don't know why, but obviously the Holy Spirit was working. So we found a church, and this is where we go now, to Community Centre in Kilconnell. But going back to the Isle of Wight, and even into my childhood, my first introduction was on an oracle. We actually thought an oracle was safe. It wasn't an Ouija board, it was a round circle with letters and a glass, and yes, it did work. But as I got older, I found out I was very, very good at receiving spirits, sensing, hearing spirits. And this led me to learning the runes, learning how to do divination. I could never say that word properly, but you know what I mean. And also tarot cards and other things. So I became, as you would call, a medium, but I didn't hold seances, or I didn't go to the churches or chapels, as they call them, to do things with an audience. But as time went by, I started getting a little worried because I was getting so very good and so able to connect to spirits and tell people what I was being told. And I realised now it wasn't the truth, it was just pure evil. There had been things that happened. One of the things was I lived in South Africa, and my mother had fallen down the steps, and I knew this. I'd seen it, and my father was at a desk writing to me, and I was stood over him watching him write to me. And I said to my ex-husband, I'm going to get a letter in 4 or 5 days from my dad telling me that my mum's fallen and she's quite poorly. And yeah, in 4 or 5 days, the letter arrived. And I just seemed to be hungry. I wanted to learn more, wanted to do more, and I did feel very good because I did have quite a low esteem about myself, but this was making me feel good. So I was getting people coming to me, asking me to read the tarot cards. I used the runes more privately, and just things started to go wrong. We lived in a pub and I had seen spirits there. One of them was the ex-landlord who died there, and actually died in the seat where I saw him, wearing the same clothes that I saw in him. And I was getting part of me frightened and part of me quite excited that I was getting better and really good at doing this. I had people coming to me. One lady came to me and said that she'd heard that I could see and sense and be able to tell her what to do. Her boyfriend had died, in what circumstances I don't know, but her boyfriend had died, and she'd started seeing somebody else, and over a period of months or a year she'd moved this guy in with her, and then things started happening. Electrics going, doors opening, doors shutting. Obviously it was what we would refer to as a poltergeist, who was extremely angry that she'd moved somebody else in. But she was getting to the point where he was beginning to frighten her. He was waking her up and disturbing her sleep. So she came to me, and of course, I thought, well, I can tell her to do this, tell her to do that. And different things to lay, different things to go around the house with a smoke stick, or that was made of rosemary, to cleanse the spirit, cleanse the room. Different crystals to use, different words to say. She never did come back to me. I don't know whether it worked. I assume it must have done, because she didn't come back. But I met a friend who I now believe was a priestess. And now as I look back, I knew she was grooming me. And this had just come to me, and I'm sure this is the Lord talking through me, that she had started grooming me, turning me against the Lord, blaspheming him, saying, you know, he doesn't really work, he just works for himself, and he's no different than what Satan is. And I know from experience that she had cast spells on people, and she once wrote on a shop window, somebody had sort of ripped her off or wouldn't change something, and she wrote across a window, which I didn't understand, it was in symbols. But sure enough, a few months later, that shop went bankrupt. So I started cutting the ties a little bit and distancing myself from her. Fortunately, she moved over to Portsmouth, and she kept in touch, and even through phone calls or text messages, something was going wrong with me and Nigel. She always wanted this, and I started drinking an awful lot, and I'm really ashamed of the states I got in and some of the things I did. And I did actually have quite a heated argument, all on my side, not Nigel's. Packed a case, left, rang her up, and she was very eager to receive me over in Portsmouth. I stayed there for a week. I did tell Nigel that no, I hadn't left him, but I needed space. Why? I don't know. Because it was all off drink. But, you know, this is Satan at his best in some stages, working on me. Anyway, I came back and we sorted things out, and that's when I really started thinking, I don't want to go down this route, I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't know whether it was the Lord's way of making us go, because he knew the danger that we was in, or I was in. That the pub started going downhill, and in all honesty, we owed an awful lot of money. And we just decided then that we had to leave the island and get as far away as possible as we could. And to be quite honest, we knew that if we came to Scotland, we'd be pretty safe because we had nothing. We left everything behind. We gave them the keys at the pub, told them that we didn't have any money to meet the bills, but whatever was left in the pub, the furniture, the beer, the spirits, everything, take it, it's yours. We can't possibly owe you anything after you've sorted that out. So we came up to Scotland, but I'll tell you now, I have never been so frightened as I were as we decided to pack on the Sunday. Nigel went and bought an old bashed up van that we loaded the stuff in. He paid £200 for it, that we didn't really have, but we had to get off the island with what we could carry in the car. 3 dogs, a cat, and set off up to a new life in Scotland. And the fear was unbelievable. We moved more or less in black plastic bin bags, boxes. I don't think we could have squeezed a postage stamp in either the car or even the van. And we left the island, but that morning before we left, I kept saying to Nigel, we can't leave it any longer, we can't leave it any longer. If we leave it any longer, we're going to get caught, we're going to get stopped. And I had visions of the police being at the ferry terminal. Why, I don't know, but this fear was so strong in me that I was retching or throwing up, literally. So we got onto the ferry and Nigel said to me, well, are you going to turn round and say goodbye to the island? And I said, no, I'm never turning round to say goodbye again. This is it. We're going forward. And we did. And it was only when I could say we was halfway up, that I felt the evil starting to subside, the fear, the anguish, the sickness. And as I come further and further up to Scotland, I was beginning to feel a bit more myself. So we did finally get to the house. It took 12 hours, if not longer. We hit snow. Nigel decided to go up a road that we were never meant to, and like an idiot, I followed him. He was in the van and could turn round, and I was in the car. I couldn't see anything behind me through the wing mirrors or even in front. We was up in a field. And my exact words were, oh, sod this, I'm not following him. And I did a 3-point turn on a road, hit something, took half of the back of the car off, but hey, never mind. I just saw this one light in the distance and I knew that's the light where I was going to. And that's where I went, and we got to the house we were renting. So, like I said, we stayed in this house, but it was far too expensive for us to keep. So we decided to move, and I still feel it was the Lord that took us to Sanka. And I met the next door lady next door. She was a Christian, but she had she liked me, but she had a very, very strange feeling about me. She just couldn't put her hand on why she didn't really want anything to do with me, but she sort of chatted. We found this later because we now have a Tuesday afternoon where we Bible study and prayer, and Sarah's the lady that I'm talking about. And she asked me if I would like to go to a prayer meeting, and I said yes, I would. And I don't think I've turned a bad road since. Went to the prayer meeting. We found the church that we're now going to. I had 2 incidents since I left. One was a really, really bad dream just before I was to be baptised. And I woke up screaming and shouting the Lord's Prayer out at the top of my voice. And all I can tell you is, in all the times that I felt spirits, talked to spirits, I have never seen anything so demonic as this night. And I think this was one of Satan's serious messengers. I was old of my son, my youngest son. He's now fully grown, but in this dream he was a child. And this black cloak was covering me, pressing down on me, and I managed to pull something over me and over my child, and I wouldn't look at the face. And all I can remember is pulling this cover over and over and over and praying at the top of my voice. I wouldn't look at it, I wouldn't let it see my child, my son. And like I said the Lord's Prayer, and at the end of this prayer, the Lord told me to go to Isaiah. And the words that I read was, "Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you." And he has. I was baptised, not without incident. The night before I was due to be baptised, I'd gone to get the cat in. It was throwing it down. And I was pushed. I know I was pushed. Pushed to the floor and broke my foot, broke my ankle. But I still got baptised. I still got baptised, and I've not looked back since. The Holy Spirit is with me. Don't get me wrong. We all sin, and I sometimes wake up with the sin of a bad mood or feeling angry. For what reason? I don't know. But I can't turn round now and say, as we would say in Lancashire, sling your hook, Satan. You ain't getting there. You're not getting in this mind ever again. Because the only spirit I'm ever going to talk to is the Holy Spirit. That's my testimony. I've talked about Nigel, so I've asked him to join me in this talk that we're having, this testimony, so he can tell you what he experienced by knowing me.
When I first met Chris, we were in the Scouts, or we joined the Scouts together, and I got to know her quite well, but every now and again she'd say, come into a room, say, I've just channeled, and that to me wasn't right. I didn't understand what she meant, so I asked her, and she told me what she meant. And I was a Christian. I was a backslidden Christian when I met Chris, but when we moved up to Scotland, we made a conscious decision. I wanted to find a church, and I couldn't find a church on the Isle of Wight, which I was happy in. But we moved to Sanka, and after a lot of persuading and a lot of cajoling from Chris, we decided to go to Kirkconnell Community Church, and we've not looked back since. I mean, the testimony that Chris has given is only part of it. We've been through a lot. We've been homeless. We've had everything, and then we've had nothing.
We've lost it all.
We've lost it all. But since we moved into our house in Kellerholm,
it's the Lord's house.
The Lord has provided everything in that house. I came back to the Lord just after we moved to Sanka, and then I So I said to Chris, can you actually identify a time when you became a Christian? Because I believe that's very important, that you have to be able to say when you become a Christian. And it's not important that you can name the day, but it is important that you have this experience. And she said, no, I can't really. So we prayed, and she gave her life to the Lord. And I rededicated my life to the Lord, and we've not looked back since, have we?
No.
We've never been happier.
We prayed for the house that we're in now, because we wanted to be near to the church, because we knew that the car was about to give up on us. And we thought, well, at least we can get to church, even if we haven't got a car. And we were on a good bus route anyway. So we took it to the prayer meeting that we were attending on a Wednesday, and they prayed that we would find a house. And we did. It's a council house, but it's our house. We didn't have anything because the house that we were renting, all the white stuff was belonging to them. We had ornaments and a bed, some drawers and a wardrobe. And we thought, well, we'll get by. The Lord will provide for us. You know, we'll find things, charity shops and car boots, all these things. And then sadly, one of the girls who goes to our church, her uncle died. And she knew we'd been praying for stuff, and she just contacted me and said, well, my uncle's died, do you want to come and pick whatever you want, because it's got to be out of the house by the weekend for the council to put somebody else in. You know, that house is furnished from top to bottom with her uncle's stuff. It's just amazing. Even pictures, settee, drawers, cupboards, you name it, it was supplied. All the stuff in the kitchen was her uncle's. And this is all what the Lord has done for us. So I have dedicated my life to the Lord. I've asked him to show me what he wants to do, and this, I feel, is part of it. And if whatever way I can serve him, I will serve him. Because he's certainly turned my life around from being a virtual alcoholic, bad-tempered, I wouldn't say violent, but foul-mouthed person, to somebody that my kids wouldn't even recognise. I'm now known on the Isle of Wight as Chrissy the Christian, which makes me smile. And I sort of had a bit of a run-in with my brother who came to visit us. I found out that his blaspheming was getting to me more and more. And some of the sort of crude jokes and things like that I just wouldn't laugh at. And he left, and just before he left, we said, you know, can we say a prayer for you? Make sure you've got a safe journey, which sort of left him with his mouth open a little bit. I don't know if he'll ever watch this. If he does, I'm sorry, Jeff, but that's the way it was. And the other week, when you rang up and pretended you were of a certain origin, which I keep getting phone calls from, and I just told you to, well, I can't say the word because I won't, but it wasn't a very nice one. And your exact words were, now I've got my sister back. That's the sister I remember. Well, it's not anymore. I'm just walking with the Lord, and I'm loving every minute of it. I have never felt so secure, so loved, so at peace. It's pretty amazing. It really is. And I'd never go back. Never go back to what I was. My life's with the Lord now, and that's how it'll stay. So thank you, Nigel, for putting up with me and sticking with me, and also explaining a lot of things to me that were being kept secret from the dark side. I don't mean Darth Vader, I mean Satan. So I just want to say thanks. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah.
Oh, put your life in Jesus' nail-scarred hands. Just put your life in Jesus' nail-scarred hands. He's the rock of ages, he's the sage of sages, he's the key to the promised land. So put your life in Jesus' nail-scarred hands. I was blind, but now I've learned to see. I was trapped, but now I've been set free. I was lost and alone, so far from home, I was losing sight of me. But now I'm warm and safe as I can be. So put your life in Jesus' nail-scarred hands. Put your life in Jesus' nail-scarred hands. You have heard the wondrous story. Now go and tell it across the land. Tell 'em, put your life in Jesus' nail-scarred hands. Oh yeah, right. I don't really have a verse to go here, so I'll just let the band play it one time. Play it, Johnny. Play it, boy. Yeah, that's nice. Put your life in Jesus' nail-scarred hands. Put your life in Jesus' nail-scarred hands. He's the rock of ages, he's the sage of sages, he's the key to the promised land. So put your